So round 3 of the Rugby Championship is nearly here, and the Springboks find themselves taking on Argentina in South Africa, an important game for the overall standings and the Rugby Championship. And in this video, we are going to try and predict the Springboks side that will be taking on Los Pumas, but it is not just myself. I have got Rugbyitch with me. This game, mate, Ellis Park, there was snow there recently, but I think these two sides, they're going to be bringing the heat for round 3 of the championship, aren't they?
Yeah, no, it should be a great test between these two sides. Again, the last game we saw obviously was, I think it was in actually Argentina, and the Boks actually did put off a good performance actually against them then. So hopefully this game is a bit more closer, I'd say, in terms of like what we'll get from both sides.
This game, of course, taking place after that All Blacks versus Wallabies game. So whether or not the ABs already have their hands on the trophy,
exactly,
we do have to wait and see. But both sides here, I'm expecting strong lineups, both having one win in the Rugby Championship, which means whoever wins this game has a very good shot of finishing in second, or maybe at a stretch finishing at number 1. But first of all, speaking of number 1, we are going to be looking through at the front row for the Springboks. In your selection, who have you gone with as the 1, 2, 3?
Yeah, it's pretty difficult, I'd say, in terms of the front row, just because, well, this has been very argued a lot actually in the media in terms of like, I guess, that number 2 position, if Malcolm Marx should be the starting hooker or not. But in my opinion, look, I mean, last week it kind of demonstrated where Malcolm Marx coming off the bench does make an immediate impact. But at the same time, if you want to put your best squad out there, I think we are kind of getting at the stage now where maybe Malcolm Marx is just the guy to start, and maybe you bring Bongi off the bench. So that's kind of what I've done for this one. I believe I've gone with Stephen Kitsoff at number 1. I've gone with Malcolm Marx number 2, and I'm finishing off with Frans Malherbe at number 3. So in my opinion, this is probably the best kind of front row you could go to start with in terms of the box. So hopefully they go with this. We'll see if they do it or not. But yeah, that's my front row.
So for myself, I have also stuck with the same 2 props as they have gone with in the past, with Stephen Kitsoff as number 1 and Frans Malherbe as number 2. In that All Blacks game, we didn't see as much scrum dominance from the Springboks, but I think in this game up against the Pumas, they should be able to find their momentum once again. For number 2, very similar to yourself, I was battling with whether or not to have Bongi or Manambi starting again, or whether to have the super sub Malcolm Marx get his start. I actually ended up sticking with Bongi or Manambi. You might remember just before we started filming, I said I had 2 men that I switched around just before we got on a call. And those 2 were the hookers. I had Malcolm Marx as my starting 2, but then I thought to myself, with the impact that the bomb squad were able to have, if the starting 15 can get their job done, Malcolm Marx is just going to be able to extend on what they've already been able to do. So I have gone with Bongi as my number 2. And I mean, I've given away my number 16, but I assume that you have probably got similar 2 for 2 and 16 looking through. No, not at all. Joseph Weber's coming back, isn't he?
Exactly.
Nonetheless, looking at the locking duo. Last week, they went with a strong combination of Eben Etzebeth and Ludiacha. So I've stuck with it. I went with Eben Etzebeth 4. I feel like he's going to have a big physical game here. He was away from the squad for a few days, but now makes his way back in. And I just don't see them having him as a guy coming off the bench. If he's in the team and he's in that environment, for me, he's starting. Of course, Jean Klein would have been a great option to have after the way that he played up against Australia. But I've stuck with Etzebeth, the big man, and then Ludiacha. Feel like he is a very strong option for number 5.
Yeah, well, I've actually made one change compared to you in this, I guess, this locking position. Again, I have stuck with the likes of Eben Etzebeth, which is kind of expected because he is kind of the enforcer, you could say, of that forward pack. But yeah, I've actually gone with RJ Simon here to start alongside him in this locking position. So yeah, that's maybe the one change I made following the last game, obviously, where Lord Diego did start. But yeah, I think RJ Simon can do a bit here. So yeah, I think that's my starting duo for this game.
I like it. He was right up there in the selection. I think the Springboks, locking-wise, now that they've got those 4 top dogs, and then you've also got Franco Mostert as an option that could slot in as a lock-in partner. I think that is somewhere that the Springboks, if they can use it to their advantage, they just have a huge amount of depth, no matter who they go with. Looking through at the loose forward trio, somewhere else that the Springboks do have depth. So looking at your loose forward trio, I assume you've got maybe 1 or 2 changes from what we saw last week up against the ABs. So who have you got in that trio?
Well, I've definitely made some switches in there. I mean, it's difficult because you have to kind of like just, I guess, kind of just judge in terms of who you think will kind of get more minutes, I guess, in this game following that AB's game. Because, I mean, overall, I think all those players actually did pretty well. I mean, Quagga Smith at times I thought just wasn't, I don't know, he wasn't at his best at some points, but again, he was pretty good, I'd say, throughout the whole game overall. And then you had like, you had Jasper Visa, who again just was, I guess, a bit off. But yeah, as soon as Dwayne came on, then kind of changed the game itself. But yeah, I guess for my loose forwards, I mean, I've made a few switches here. I've actually gone with Michael van Staden to start number 6 again. I thought he was actually pretty good actually in that opening round against the Wallabies, and I believe he played in that position. So I just want to go with him once more in that number 6 jersey. For number 7, this is actually where I'm going with Franco Mostert. I just believe, he can kind of bring a bit more, just a bit of just another enforcer really towards that kind of forward pack. And I think he's just someone you can utilize so well. So I think that's why I've gone with number 7. At number 8, this is a tough call because I could have gone with Dwayne Vermeulen, but I have decided to stick with Jasper Visa. So yeah, it is a really tough call because Dwayne Vermeulen, you could yeah, he definitely was, I'd say, the better 8 on the day against the All Blacks. But I just think you got to give more minutes towards Jasper Visa. So yeah, that's my my loose forward trio there.
Similar to what we've seen in the past, I've got 3 differences.
Nice.
For your loose forward trio. It always seems to happen. It seems to always end up as a loose forward trio that we end up completely switching around. Across the rest of the board, we're normally pretty consistent.
Exactly.
But number 6 for me, I have stuck with Quagga Smith. Like you mentioned, at times throughout that AB's game, he was solid. He had a few mistakes here and there, but overall, I thought a solid enough performance to give him another crack. Marco van Staden, excellent player, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did decide to go with him instead. Number 7, I have gone with Peter Steph du Toit. I feel like I wouldn't mind seeing him get a few more minutes up against Argentina with that physicality. I feel like he could certainly be a useful option for the Boks. And then number 8, I have gone with Dwayne Vermeulen back into the starting lineup. Jasper Visa, I feel like he was just not quite where he normally is. But the problem you've got is he needs to have game time to find that momentum. But it's just that question of when do you give him game time? I think that may be the second game up against Argentina rather than this one. But looking through now at the 9-10 combo, I have made one change. Number 9, Faf de Klerk. I have decided to stick with him just because I feel they will try and test out a few new combinations throughout this year, definitely building into that Rugby World Cup. And number 10, I've gone back to him. He had a great game up against Australia. At the moment, it seems like a pretty one-horse race for that number 10 with Andre Pollard's injury, and that is Mani Libok as my starting fly half. And also, I'm giving him the kicking tee, unlike Damien Willemse.
Nice. I mean, yeah, no, I've actually gone the same do as you. I've gone with Lexer Flap at number 9, and yeah, Mani Libok at number 10. I just think, yeah, like you said with Mani Libok, I just think he gives you that extra kicking option. I mean, it was kind of funny to watch, like several players kind of kick it against the All Blacks because, like, he did this against the All Blacks. It was like I just couldn't believe what was happening. Like you had Cheslin Kobe kicking like so many of his kicking the conversions. You had Flap the Crick as well. I mean, it's just this. I'm just like, geez, they really do need 100 Pollard in this game. But nah, I mean, Mani Libok has to be the 10 here. I just think he whenever he's come on really for the I guess for the Boks really where it started, he really just looks like he's a new they can kind of play a new system around him really in terms of that back line, in terms of I guess like utilizing I guess that quick ball play out towards the backs. I think he's definitely someone who can give a different I guess edge maybe towards that Springbok back line in terms of what the attacking set pieces can be. But the overall the 9-10 combination could work out to be a treat in this game.
And also his combination with Willie Leroux in that first game up against Australia, just had that little bit of an extra attacking option and a threat for the Springboks when they are going forward. Speaking of Willie Leroux, we're not quite to his position yet. We will continue on with the centres. Number 12 and 13, who is that combination for you?
Yeah, so, I mean, again, I would never be really saying this, I think, for this ever in my lifetime. But for the first time, I think this is probably a tricky call because unfortunately, Kanye Wam, he just, in my opinion, he just hasn't been able to make the impact he was able to do in the last few years in this Boks side. Again, you do have to remember he's kind of coming back from an injury, so I have to kind of take that into account, of course. But he just hasn't been able to kind of like get on his feet really and kind of make the impact as we normally, just as he normally does. But I have actually decided to stick with him. I just think that you have to give him more minutes. I just think it's kind of like what you said more towards like the Aston Villa, where you have to kind of just play him and kind of just give him more minutes in that situation. So I have got Lukanyo at number 13. But for the number 12, this is where it's a bit more difficult because you have two players where, I mean, Andre Hesthuizen was brilliant, I'd say, in that first game against the Wallabies. I think he was probably one of my man of the matches, really, in terms of like, players who stood out in that game. But then you had someone like Dimian Delende, who I actually think he had a pretty good game actually against the All Blacks. Again, he had maybe a few mistakes in there, but again, most of the Boks had that going from the game. But guys, it was a tough call, this one, really it was. But I had just decided to go with Dimian Delende. But could come back to kind of kick me. But yeah, I've gone with the original duo there. So we'll see if they do that or not.
I felt like you were slowly ripping off a Band-Aid, you know?
Yeah,
you were trying to soften the blow.
It's
then you just ripped it off and said, I'm going with that world-class combo.
Exactly.
Which is not what I've done. I've made a switch, Tim, for my two in the centres. Number 12, Andre Esterhuizen. I feel like this is a game definitely up against the Pumas that we can see what Esterhuizen can do once again. Damian Delende up against the All Blacks. I didn't think he had too bad of a game, but there were a few too many mistakes, I think. And because he's coming back from injury, he's in the same boat as a few of the other players that they just need a little bit more game time. But I think while Andre Esterhuizen is hot, that sounds weird, is in form, that's a better way of putting it. I think that he should be in that starting side just to see, who knows, maybe he could be that starting 12 option going forward if he is playing some of his best rugby. Number 13, I have gone with Lukanyo Jesse Kriel. There's still the question mark, when are they going to introduce him into the Springboks side again? But I think Lukanyo he needs those minutes, needs to have one big performance, because normally with him, as soon as he has one good game, he has about 15 straight afterwards that are just as good. But now we are up to that back three for this contest. Number 11, I have gone with Kurtley Arunsa, the man who got himself a hat-trick on South African soil. Makazole Mapimpi in the last game, I felt didn't really get involved as much as I would have liked to see. And with Kurtley Arunsa, the reason I've gone with him is because I want to test out a new combination. And that is having Kurtley Arunsa on that left wing and Cheslin Colby out on the right wing. Now, some would say they're relatively similar in the way that they play in terms of that acceleration down the wing, quick as a cat. And I think that this game up against Argentina is a good game to try and test that out in, mainly because we're probably going to see Mateo Carreras and then also maybe Rodrigo Isgro. So a couple that are possibly a little bit smaller than some of the wingers, although Rodrigo Isgro from the sevens, we know he can bulldoze over quite a few people. Although in the last game, it didn't even seem to matter that it was Marika Korombedi out on that wing. He was still going over the top of him. So I want to see what Kurtley Arunsa and Colby can bring to the table out on the wings. And then at number 15, I mentioned him earlier on, I don't think we can take this man out. It's Willie Leroux. He's been in some great form. And yeah, I want to see that combination of him and Lebok together once more.
It's crazy, but we've done it once more. We have the exact same back line. What a shock, guys. But yes, I do have the likes of Kurtley Arunsa number 11, Cheslin Colby number 14, and Willie Leroux number 15. Similar to you, I just wanted to see that combination for the first time, really, with Kurtley Arunsa and, of course, Cheslin Colby. I just think you are right in saying that, yeah, they are kind of two similar players in the way they kind of play rugby, but you've got to have both of them because they are probably the best two, I'd say, in form-wise in terms of wingers. I mean, you do have Makazole Mapimpi, of course, and to be honest, I think in the day, like if we're in a World Cup final once more, it's a tough call, guys. This because again, there'll be there will be lead up games to it, and that will kind of decide who kind of starts or not. But I think you still have to go with Mapimpi. I just think he's one of those players where you can rely on so much. He knows the system in and out. It's a tough one because Kurtley Arunsa is really putting his hand up really with these games he's had so far. But yeah, no, like you said, Cheslin Colby just has to be in. We're going to see what he can do. And yeah, Willie Leroux he's been in good form. So yeah, definitely deserves to have that opportunity once more.
I think the big question is whether or not that system that you spoke of needed the 2.0 upgrade of Kurtley Arunsa for that left wing rather than Makazole Mapimpi. I think it won't take long for Mapimpi to start finding his stride again. Like at the end of the day, it was his first game back playing up against the ABs. They could easily put him out on that left wing up against Argentina and he could cause chaos. So
Yeah.
It's exciting to know that the Springboks, they don't just have one good option. They have multiple that when the players find that form, that 33-man squad is going to be looking pretty strong for France. We do have to say that. But now looking through at the benches, number 16, 17, and 18, replacement front row. Who have you gone with?
So, of course, we are going to have one change here no matter what. As I have gone the likes of Bongi Manomi as my number 16 option here. For the rest, I've actually gone the likes of Trevor Indian Kanye at number 17. And I've actually gone the likes of Vincent Koch at number 18. So, I don't believe I actually chose Trevor Indian Kanye last week. But I think this is the first time I've actually chosen him actually within this Rugby Championship. So, yeah, I just think he did come off the bench, if I'm not mistaken, right? Did he come off the bench against the All Blacks last week? Or?
I believe it was Thomas du Toit, who neither of us picked.
I knew there was one player we missed out. I was like, oh, why did we pick him? But yeah, no, I've gone with Trevor and Kanye and Vincent Koch, so we'll see if they do it or not.
Okay, 2 out of 3 are the same. Of course, I've got Malcolm Marx as number 16. I've given Trevor Nakanye number 17, mainly because we haven't seen him yet. And I feel like he does have to get a crack at some stage just to see whereabouts he is sitting. And then number 18, I have once again gone with Vincent Koch. Now, we've got the 6-2 split, I assume, for both of us here.
Yes.
Just have to confirm. So, we've got 3 forward replacements still remaining. For myself, number 19, I've gone with RG Snyman. I didn't have him in the starting lineup like yourself, but I think that coming off the bench, he's been very dangerous, and he'd be the same in the starting side. I like him coming off the bench at 19, slowly building him back in, getting ready for that World Cup. Number 20, I have gone with Franco Moster. I felt that he had a decent performance last week at times, and him coming off the bench, it offers that cover of lock as well as loose forward. So I've decided to give him that crack. And then number 21, the man who you've got as your starting 6, I've got Marco van Staden coming off the bench as my last forward replacement.
Interesting. So you haven't even picked Jasper Wiese at all then in your whole team?
I'm saving him. I'm saving him for next week.
Okay. Yeah, I like the call that. I mean, again, this is even before this call, guys, this is probably the one position where I was stuck the most in terms of, I guess, the selection here, because there's a lot of loose forwards to go with, and I have to keep in mind this is the Rugby Championship. So originally I did have Quagga Smith in there, but I've actually gone with the likes of Peter Seth-Toit at my number 20 position. But for number 19, however, I have actually gone with Gene Klein here. I just feel like he's someone who, look, I could have gone with Lord Jaeger just because, he actually had a good game against the All Blacks, but he didn't really do anything wrong. But I just think John Klein he deserves an opportunity here. So I'm going to go with him at number 19. Like I said, I'm going with Peter Seth-Toit, number 20. And yeah, I've gone with Dwayne Vermeulen at number 21. So yeah, I think he can make the same impact as he kind of did against the All Blacks. So that's the reason why I've selected him as well.
Very strong bench. Once again, similar to what we saw for the All Blacks versus the Springboks. And those guys off the bench had a real impact in that game. It was pretty much instant that as soon as they started making their way on the field, the physicality ramped up, the speed of the game picked up as well, and the Boks started finding a little bit of a rhythm at that point. But now we've got 2 positions remaining, the 2 back replacements. Who have you got? 22 and 23. I'm curious because there's a man's name that's been thrown back into the hat.
Yeah.
And has that hat been picked up by yourself?
I'll be honest, I haven't actually gone with him because I was a bit unsure if they were going to go with him or not. I mean, it is kind of perfect opportunity for him for this game, but I have to kind of stick to what I went with here. So I have actually gone with the likes of Grant Williams here at the number 9 position, you could say, the back of number 9 in terms of that 22 spots. But yeah, for number 23, however, this is actually where I've gone with the likes of Jesse Klilch because I think he deserves an opportunity. I think he hasn't had a lot of minutes in this Rugby Championship, and I just think, like I said beforehand, the Kanye hasn't been in his best of form, you could say, throughout this Rugby Championship. So I think he can kind of slot in there if needed at number 13 jerseys. So yeah, that's the reason why I've gone with him there. And again, he can play number 14 if really needed, an injury pops up as well.
Righty, well, I've got 2 changes from yourself once again. Number 22, I have gone with Jaden Hendricks. If he is ready to play, I feel this is the perfect opportunity for the Springboks to give him the chance. Herschel Yankee seems to be falling further and further down the pecking order at the moment, it would seem, for the Springboks. And Grant Williams, he seems to be right up there at the moment with what they're looking for the last 20 minutes or so. And then number 23, I've gone with Damien Valimza. I'm not too sure how they're going to incorporate him, whether or not they put him at number 15 or whether he slots into maybe centre or somewhere around there. But it's just a pick that I'm thinking the Springbok selectors may consider giving him another crack because they will want to have him as the informed backup fly half. But he's just not quite there yet. I feel like there's a little bit more form that can be found, but once he finds it, it could be very dangerous for the Springboks. But I like it. We've got quite a few changes throughout our sides compared to what we normally have, which is relatively similar. I feel like this week we're very much guessing who's going to be in the matchup against Argentina. But nonetheless, thank you all very much for tuning in. If you did enjoy, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Let us know who you think the selectors will go with in the Springboks versus Pumas match as well. But do check out Rugbyitch. He has got a YouTube channel, and also check out the Rugby Recap, where we will be looking through at all of the fixtures for the Rugby Championship, doing a preview that will be coming out just before the matches do take place. Thank you all very much for tuning in. We will see you all for the next one.